to start building a global brand in 30 days or less. This is really the best webinar here to help give you the framework for building that global brand. Maybe you have an existing brand already. That's okay. We're going to help give you some global strategies that you can use in your current business. Or if you're just new, just starting out, not a problem. We'll teach you on what the right steps are to make sure that you're starting off with the best success as it relates to that growth and that big vision that you have for yourself. So let's see here. Let's move this out the way. Okay. Oh, it's chat's disabled, huh? I'm gonna have to look into the settings, but when we go into the Q&A, you'll have a chance to answer any questions and those sort of things too. Or throw your info into the poll too, by the way. All right. So let's talk about today's agenda, right? Uh, we're going to talk about aligning your mission, vision, and venture strategy for global impact. What tactics should we start using? Start really that global outreach. How to really start leveraging those networks in potentially foreign in international countries. And then how do we execute this global brand playbook? Because every brand's got a playbook. You got to have a playbook. And so, as it relates to how your brand goes out into different countries and get market share and become renowned globally instead of just locally, we'll talk about how to do that, talk about scaling, and then we'll follow up with some tools and tips to help you track kind of brand performance over different multiple countries, right? Because you can't be everywhere at once. So how do you maintain that and make sure that it stood up in a good and professional way? So just to give you a little bit, I'll just give you a little bit about myself. My name is Chris Richards. I'm the founder of UX Bright. We're a product consulting firm. We've been around since 2020, but we essentially help businesses with digital transformation, process improvement, and some new AI software development that we've been helping a lot of firms figure out. So we're a product firm through and through. We help folks from the conception of products, figuring out the requirements, taking it all the way to design, then development, launch, and then successful and reap project at the end, right? So formerly was a startup CEO at another company called Prisma Systems, where I helped automate product photography. So this was for the e-commerce industry, and so I did a lot of work with CPG. My background's in manufacturing engineering, but I've also done a lot of web and just general hardware projects. And so imagine if you're trying to sell this chapstick, and you have several different chapstick variations on your online website store, and you have tons of products. You need to get images, right, in order to sell at that current time around 2015 to 2020. And so built that business up, and then eventually acquired by a business out of San Diego called Show Labs. And that was my first exit. You kind of see it I started at my university, worked with their accelerator, and sort of went through the different tracks of raising money and building technologies. So, but that's what I'll kind of talk about today is during my experience, I actually we did deployments out in the United States, right? It's kind of our first product, kind of later on as after we launched and got funding. And then we also looked at deploying to Europe as one of our biggest clients were out there, and so it essentially made sense for us. So I'll kind of talk through how I navigated that global sort of evolvement for my brand and what makes sense going forward for you. So at the core of it, right? Think about the vision that you have for yourself for the world. everybody's got this vision. You made it come to you in a dream. Maybe you were daydreaming at your job that you're currently at. And so everybody starts off with that dream. Facebook, it was revolutionized the way we connect with people digitally. For Google, that meant democratize information and become the world's first search engine for information. Maybe not the first, but the best, right? So everybody has this vision for the world, and you start with a core vision. This is what's going to ultimately catapult you to global potential impact, right? Because your vision is that grandiose outcome that you want that venture to become globally across the world. So if your vision is where it should be, uh, make it audacious. It should feel like, oh, shoot, this might be 10 to 20 years of potential work that needs to be done. But who's to say that those, it's not worth it, right? If you turn out to be $1 billion company, you just need to spend 10 years. I think that's not too shabby, right? And for most businesses, that's where if you can last 10 years, that's where you see sort of really just the most accelerated pieces of the growth, right? But have that grandiose vision, put it out there, and we're going to work backwards from the vision and talk about the mission, right? So once we figured out the vision, okay, we've got this larger than life goal we want to do. How can we bring it a little closer to home as something a little bit more attainable? So that's what the mission is. Your mission is your purpose. So all of this is part of crafting the global brand, right? Your vision for the world likely also should have some type of social good, social impact, something that people across the world would want to ascribe to. And those are big ideas. You gotta, whatever you got currently, you throw it against the wall and try again, right? If it's only local to you right now, think about how you can make this bigger than you, or bigger than your local community or current clients that you have. And what does this mean for a global impact? If you start thinking about that, it really does kind of change your perspective on the mission that you have. So your mission is your purpose, right? Because every company has a mission. You should have some type of mission statement somewhere. And if you don't, just write it down somewhere. But your mission statement is attainable. This is 3 to 5 years. And really you keep this one super present all the time. And then it really helps you with figuring out what your objectives are, right? So Facebook, right? Uh, Similar example. They started off 2008 with Facebook. Our mission was to connect university students with other students in the United States. Then that transitioned into now, right? Still same vision of revolutionizing connecting with the way people connect digitally, right? But now their missions change. Now it's give people the power to build community and build the world closer together, right? So your vision is just the future of where we're going. Like if you had to be a crystal ball and show people or paint a picture of where you want this grand thing to go, that makes a lot of sense. So, and so part of crafting your venture strategy is ideally, and for a lot of these companies, your vision and your mission should ultimately align with whatever your goals and objectives are. So if your goal is to be the next Uber of something, right? Well, you have the vision already. Now figure out a mission. So that mission might be, okay, well, we're going to build our MVP and release a functional Uber alternative. Okay, great. So now we have the mission defined. Now we can break that down. And so I usually start with the first year of that mission. You can take those and create reasonable goals. Don't try to create any other years for the mission. Just start with the first year of the mission for the strategy. Start with creating that first year's mission of goals. And then now you can break those yearly goals down by each quarter, right? So if that goal is okay, achieve funding to uh complete the MVP, and hire, 10 people, then you can break that down by quarter to give yourself literally like a blueprint for how you can get to, the greater vision that you already had in your mind. And then after creating those goals each quarter, it's just a lot easier to just extrapolate the monthly and daily activities that lead to your success, right? Um, Once you be able to figure out, okay, this is in a quarter, here's how many working days I have in a quarter, here's what I need to do each week, and then here's what I need to do each day. And that's where you kind of come up with tasks, to dos, and KPIs. Some people don't may not have the vision, may have more of a mission, and that not usually nothing wrong with that. But if you're lacking vision, at some point your mission will change, and you'll kind of lose. If the missions aren't connected when you make that change, it's going to be real hard to kind of navigate that. So let's say, okay, Chris, I figured out the vision, got the mission and strategy. Okay. I figured all that part out. What's next, right? Well, let's start actually designing the brand, because it's not, your brand is a living document. You're going to have multiple different documents, multiple different definitions of things. So it's important to really just kind of lay it out, kind of the framework of what's important for building that every brand should have, no matter what. So think about your brand holistically, truly, as you define this. And for it to have global impact, you need to define it. Uh, does your brand have a unique identity, right? So starting with that vision, right? Is it grandiose enough that it has that positive change and impact in the world that people want to ascribe to it? Perfect. Two, authenticity, right? That's the biggest thing with brands. Especially with the rise of AI agents and all these different shell companies, people want to see that you're making social impact and you're actually who you say you are, um, and you're real human and all of that. So how you reflect in terms of your character, how you treat people, all of that plays into effect. And then, personality as it relates to how you react, perhaps to certain things that happen in the market, right? People can, like a company for that. And then your value, right? Like that's core no matter what, right? The brand is synonymous with value, right? We know Microsoft, we think computers and AI nowadays. Um, and then we think Apple, we think design and smartphone, iPhone, right? And then figure out that's those core differentiators for your brand that ultimately get you to the next step. Because if you don't have any differentiators and you're just like anyone else, if you go into you're also going into another country that potentially you don't know what the current stage of competitors look like, and if you don't have enough value difference to showcase that you're the better choice than them, it becomes a real uphill battle, right? Especially if you're foreign to the country that you're deploying to. So, as part of your brand identity checklist, right? You say, okay, Chris, I understood all that. How do what's kind of the actual steps in order to actually get this ball rolling? So get create that brand persona to match your audience, right? Because if you're matching you create a brand persona, the brand persona is sort of like the persona that matches. Think Jake from State Farm. That's a persona. Say, oh man, someone just hit my car, and then I'll just call Jake from State Farm. This is a true, just a persona that they created for the average American who, runs into car issues, right? And just that relief of, oh man, someone I can call on, someone I can trust, like kind of going back to above authenticity, right? And commitment, that makes a difference. So the persona is not just like a caricature on TV, just to give you that insight. The persona is actually just a makeup of how do you want your brand voice to be, what type of language that you're sort of using to really, help folks out with, and in tone, right? Because every company's got a different tone. If you ever look at different marketing materials, everybody's got a different tone. Maybe you've used one of the AI email creators now, and you could see like, oh, how do you want the tone of this email? Do you want it to be witty? Do you want it to be conversational? Do you want it to be professional? And each brand also acts the same, right? Because your brand acts as a collective of several human beings, right? Maybe even hundreds of them one day. So you kind of want to that'll be part of your identity that you're creating all together. Once you kind of get to brand's persona, you work with a designer, create some brand guidelines or a design system, as some people have used before. The branding guidelines and design system, that's going to make sure that no matter where you deploy marketing resources in the world, no one's going to mistake your colors, right? Like McDonald's coloring scheme is still going to be the same going into Japan, still from over here in the United States. There's no difference, right? So how can they make sure that all the different people that you might deploy in a global uh, workforce, they can keep up with the standard operating procedures? Like, make sure you have your own processes set first. And then have a list of responses for your sales, marketing, and inquiries, right? Because not everybody's going to have the same responses to sales and marketing and what the language is. So, and then if you go to another country, you got to translate that. So if you don't have any, if you right now, if you don't have a list of what your responses are or any of the inquiries, it's going to be real tough. So start putting that down, and then when you're ready to go to a different country and deploy, you can translate it and then verify with a real person that, hey, this looks good translation, and it, still means the same like you wanted in English. And then yeah, just find those keywords and just keep a pulse on that market, right? As you're building out a global brand. If you intend on serving two countries out of the gate or three, that's definitely something to consider. So okay, say, okay, Chris, sounds great. I have the vision, I have the strategy, I've designed my brand identity now. So no matter what happens, I've got, logos, I've got design system, I've got all these different aspects that allow me to have global impact. But how do I start executing? Well, let's kick it off, shall we? What does it mean to actually start building this global brand once you get kind of these prerequisites in place? This actually is where it kicks off the actual 30 days, right? If you don't do any of the prerequisites before, it's really not going to help a whole lot. But a lot of this, work that you can do, you could definitely fit within, a few weeks time or less, assuming you got a good team and you're working with some good folks. So, um, apologies for that little formatting there, but uh, executing the global playbook, if you think about it at the high level, you have competitors at the world level, you have key partners, and then, and of course, your target market that you have to think about from a global perspective, right? And then you got to bring that on home to your team, whether it's finance, development, operations, support, and sales. And all of that supports really your core service, right? So it's a lot to think about, right? Especially if you get requests out of Europe, and then you're also juggling requests out of here in the United States. And there needs to be consideration for how you're going to execute this playbook. So the first piece is for global outreach, right? Really is just starting at home. Like, how else can you expect to make a global impact or a global brand if you're not performing well in your own domestic market? And that's where you want to start making sure that you look into is once you validate your offerings in the domestic market and you've proven or you worked on some unproven processes, you can that really just allows you to facilitate all the different pieces of growing the business and for other countries. And then you can just deploy very easily because you've already stood those systems up already. It's just like, okay, here it is. Let's go find some good partners, maybe do a collab investment deal, and then boom, now you've got a new headquarters in the UK or something. And then what you want to do is start establishing that foreign relations team. That's when one's going to be really big. Once you've figured out that, okay, I want to go international, let's try to find individuals that we trust and can work with that will help us in that foreign relations side of things. Because sometimes I mean, you may have been to the country, you may know it well, but it's usually good to have somebody who maybe, born there, a citizen, someone that truly knows the culture in and out to give you some insight and navigate all the different pieces. And then, of course, after you establish that foreign relation team, you want to get your product and market fit analysis going. So you're actually going to do some direct research. You're going to go into that country. You're going to go in and do direct research. So you can start by doing some surveys. You can do online surveys as a way to really just try to get early feedback to see if the demand here in that country in the UK is the same like it is in the United States. Because sometimes depending on which country you're going to select, it's not going to translate the same. And then the ROI is something to consider too. It might be, good pricing here in the United States to fulfill what you need to, but maybe they're in another country, they may have supply chain issues. What are we going to do about that? That means, that we got to play more on our pricing, and then we got to charge them more. And if they don't have money, then business model is unfeasible, right? Uh, and so once you get figured that out, the ROI on kind of which territories make sense for you, then start that digital awareness campaign. So oftentimes people kind of have the idea that, oh yeah, I want to deploy in this country, and I should just go ahead and just take a flight over there and move all this, spend all this money, have all these people over here, and you didn't validate with the customer first. I don't know about that. That's not good, right? You need to validate with every market as you go into it. If you got already existing awareness campaigns, translate those over into that language country's choice, and you know see what they say there, because you're not sometimes you don't see the same demand across businesses. So if you start building interest, then you'll have a customer base you could just migrate your business into already. You don't have to worry about oh, well, we just migrated, the business is failing over there, I got to shut down shop over there quickly. And then once we create that digital awareness campaign, start deploying to the different countries, right? And start figuring out what it takes to deploy your product or resource internationally. Because sometimes, if it's a hardware kind of product, right? If it's on the other side of the world, if shipping's no problem, okay, great. But it could be something else. You'll make sure you consider. And then as it relates to those business models, right? And this is the part of the execution of it is making sure that additionally your business model is also in sync with those international audiences as well. Because there's a big thing around regulation in different countries that not necessarily we, do the same over here. Like, so those are the things that you want to look out for, little potholes. The EU specifically has a lot more data protection and privacy laws. And so let's say you had deployed some app out here in the US, and then you tried to do same amount in the EU, and you ultimately had some data leaks or something, you were selling people's data somehow. They look at that and like, hey, we see you don't have an opt-in button on your screen for that data. We're gonna fine you for that. So keep in mind for regulations, politics, those sort of variables before you deploy this to a new country. And then really the other aspect of it is really just understanding the cultures and sales psychology of those foreign international folks. Because it's not as straightforward as you might think. All their language and culture, play a big role too. Um, some countries don't use dating apps, right? So it's like you should really, make sure that which country you're targeting is aligned to your business model. And usually that business model sweet spot, right? For a lot of folks, like, hey, Chris, how do I kind of figure out if deploying to this country actually makes sense or not? Really, you should be in this trifecta, in the middle sweet spot, this trifecta of feasibility, finance, and desirability, right? So feasibility just being like, hey, can we even do the thing we're talking about in this other country? Because sometimes it's regulation, right? Uber has faced several different regulation issues in different countries, and when they've done an expansion, Starbucks also similarly when they did an expansion in the Philippines, they got a lot of pushback because there's some regulation, and they're trying to fight, also local uh, coffee shops too, and fighting for resources. So that was fun. Um, and then the ability to generate revenue and profit, sustain itself, internationally. That's a big thing to consider, right? Can it make money on itself over there? If you were to chop or the country in half, chop the business in half, like uh, your US side and then, whatever other country you went to, would it be able to sustain itself? Right, regardless. And that's usually a good sign that you want to make sure you're in. And then desirability is sort of one of the big things, right? How do you drive client and growth in a country? Um, so, all right. So you said, okay, Chris, I've aligned with the business owners in this country, or not business owners, but my prospective clients in this country. They like what I'm doing. I've got a good business model. Let's deploy it, right? How do I get that early interest started? So really, the biggest advice that I would recommend that folks start, especially if you're building a global brand, is start recruiting those brand ambassadors to take on those new territories and guarded communities because the you wanna have people that look like that and represent that community, ideally, in that present or as a way to network and get you connected with good folks and start making an impact, right? Then create your pre-order or launch or pre-list or some type of leads list, or you can email folks and reach out to them directly if it's not international phone numbers. You can at least get emails, and start driving interest early because you want to really start getting uh, the sales and interest demand started before you even get over there. Use your efforts to build credibility over there, presence, right, within the foreign industry. You might go on a UK talk show or UK podcast if you're, looking to deploy specifically for a, new country. And then just make sure you just be part of their ecosystems. Start, have your brand ambassadors, join other communities and ecosystems that have the same objectives as your business and see what types of partnerships and collaborations you can do. And then that way, people will build trust with your brand, regardless if you guys are foreign, right? And then the last and not and most important piece of this really is winning your international customers, right? Could look a little different versus winning customers in the United States. But I always say just have a native speaking citizen as a point of contact. You know, I myself speak just a little bit Spanish, but I can't say for certain that I'll go up and run a whole conversation on everything. So I'll work with somebody that speaks Spanish. I'll mostly just find a partner or somebody to help me translate what needs to be said over there. So make sure you find some good folks that can be your camp, help you translate. And then really just from a branding perspective on the global side, just be yourself, know yourself, Transparency wins. Be honest with people. That usually goes a long way. Like regardless of what happens in the political nature of things, generally most people are pretty good. They want to see goodness in other folks. So if you can do that and showcase that and be that beacon of light and helping solve their problems, they're gonna refer you, and you can get into their networks, and and then that network effect happens, and then it just flywheels off into whatever you need it to. Meet and exceed their expectations, be truly invested, and then just keep your word, right? Credibility, like I said, is everything in business. Uh, make sure you keep your word. Some global brand considerations, right? Just make sure you ensure each country and politics align with your offerings. Start marketing early to before committing to a new market. That way, that'll save you some dollars. And not every country will be profitable. Start measuring results and optimize which countries make sense to you as needed. There are a few warning signs, of course, right? Some risks to consider. Being a global brand is a lot of work. I won't lie to you. Uh, but it is a good encounter. I mean, good endeavor, but you just need to make sure a couple of things. Uh, that lack of service, product quality. If your quality in the UK isn't the same as in the United States, it's not going to be good. And if it's poorly received by people, changes in the competitive environment, right? That's another thing to consider. You have a different competitive landscape. Make sure you're intimate with who they are and what their offerings are, and there maybe could be some differentiator opportunities for you. Because yeah, if you see all these risks and you don't do anything about it or change up your strategy, it could be a real problem. So he said, okay, Chris, how do I start tracking how well my performance and my execution is doing when I'm starting to deploy this stuff? This is going to be this is where building systems and processes are going to come into place, right? If you are still working in the business and not working on the business, then it really does limit your ability to look at these things across multiple different contexts, right? Because yeah, to be global CEO, yeah, you gotta make sure that you're looking at both of these items and then taking into consideration, and then both of them have their own decision trees, right? For each country that you decide you need to go into, put somebody in charge that you can trust, a leadership position, because it will be too much to handle at once, and your time is limited as is, right? So how do you track this? How do you track all these moving pieces, especially from, we're talking about multiple different countries and global brand. Use your KPIs from the mission we talked about earlier. Put those into some type of reporting system, like it'd be online or like Asana or something like that. And then start building in your customer feedback loops all across all those different channels into those different reporting and KPI things. So emails, help tickets, social media, surveys. There are a few different ways you could do what I did, and that was build an executive dashboard for each country. Because if you're looking at sales in both countries, you got to be able to differentiate the two and know, okay, factors over here hopefully didn't affect factors over here. So I use a data visualization tool called DataBox. It's a really cool tool. You can try it out for free. Uh, Essentially, you can connect all the different software that you have. Say it's like Jira, QuickBooks, uh, all in Twilio, like all these different platforms you can connect together, and it'll give you stats, and you can kind of build your own dashboards for. So what I did was actually, build my own dashboards in collaboration with my team members. You can use DataBox. Tableau is a great one too. Watergraph, and then I've seen some people build nice dashboards in Notion as well. But just having a pulse on every KPI in your business will ultimately help you track that performance, right? and we'll talk about a little bit like which KPIs actually make sense. We'll skip this one just for the interest of time. The types of metrics that make sense, right, is just, have that product and service quality, right? Making sure that people, when they get it in their hands, it looks good. Having that customer satisfaction, that financial viability, right? We're talking about, that financial performance, profitability, and ROI. And then your metrics online also say a lot in terms of your international metrics too. So let's say you have a international version of the website. How many people are going on that website too? You should be tracking the US version of the website and the international versions of the website too. So that gives you all the metrics that you need. And then for some resources for you guys as you're starting to build out your brand, something to consider. Um, if you're unsure if a market is good for you, start using market data. There's resources like Bloomberg Data and datatrade.com. You can go on there and look up different publications and different statistics about what's going on in different markets, depending on what your industry is. So it's all varying, all encompassing, lots of different industries. Look at that. Uh, I would definitely work with financial experts and advisors and other like CPAs and that to help you crunch the numbers and make sense of the economic viability of going global, or going to another international country. Um, and then, we have a few online resources. And, part of this presentation, if you want to come back and read the resource, we will be sending those out in a follow-up email. But yeah, Ward Business. It's got a great article on how to build that brand. There's another global branding article, and then some aspects around brand management, which I think is also a good aspect of any global brand. And then you can have an external team review your team stuff, and then you can collab key partners. So um, these are just a few. I won't rattle off any of these tools, but if you need website performance, SEO performance, they can help you separate your views. Google Analytics, a big one too. They can tell you how many people from which website or from which country have been interested in your product or service. So that could tell you something about your data and if it's worthwhile venture. You can track ads, Facebook Pixel, AdRoll, a couple other different things. And then lastly, have a CRM. I would say, if you're going to be doing sales in an international country, make sure you have some type of CRM system. And then there's separate CRMs, not the separate CRMs, not all in one. So US team should have a separate one. And then here are just a few automation tools. You feel free to come back to this and refer. But the biggest thing is here, folks, okay? After everything I've talked about today, at the end of the day, we can strategize all we want, but the real truth of the matter is action is greater than strategy in some cases. You're going to be constantly experimenting, and it relates to your marketing and changing up methods to reach audiences. All right. So if you're not sure if it's going to work, you could just try it out. And it's important to fail and fail fast. Not saying that, hey, just go into anything just blindly without any backup plan or strategy, right? But uh, Mike Tyson has a great quote about this. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do after the fact? And that's where this comes from. Is you will experience some challenge as it relates to going global, right? So make sure you keep yourself honest, follow up, and yeah, whatever you build it beautifully. So we're open up for Q&A for everyone here today. Start answering some questions. So let's take a look, see. Anyone have any questions so far? Looks like I got 44% participants here. Um, Please, any questions, welcome. If you have any, or yeah, if you want to connect too, throw in your information as well. I'll also throw in my information in the chat if you want to get connected. But yeah, we'll keep the questions going on whatever you guys have. Let me copy paste this. Okay. Okay, Jason Scott, raise your hand. Okay, Jamie said, want to show the slides on the automation again. Give me 1 second. Okay. So this is my contact information. I just put it in the chat for several of you. Um, yeah, let's look at some questions real quick. Teef says, what if I'm going to launch a fashion brand in the Middle East? I'm from Pakistan, but currently in Qatar and exploring this market. What would be the first step to start? Well, first, depending on what your familiarity is, Qatar, I'm assuming hopefully you had some good connections of folks who are well well connected within that country. So I would start there with network connections, making sure that I have some good liaisons and brand ambassadors if I wanted to actually start that brand in this country. So, and then just really look at it if does Qatar have the align with your fashion brand, like style, right? Like, does their style still align with your their brand? If so, and everything else still points in the right direction, you can start growing that. So that's great. Uh, deep dip dip Nash says brands often mold their product according to country. What kind of prerequisite research is required to fit best for the country? Um, it really comes back down to this one right here. I'm gonna just execute this playbook. Apologies when it isn't formatted properly, but the prerequisite research first, you want to find what your market numbers are. So, what is your total addressable market within that country? So, if I'm for example, I'll use the Starbucks example. Starbucks decides, hey, I want to go to France. I want to deploy in France. Okay. How many coffee shops are in France? Okay, let's take a look at all my competitors. So do kind of that competitive analysis. How many competitors do I have in France and coffee shops available? Okay, great. Now, what are people saying about coffee shops? Do they have their favorites already? Are they missing something? Find the pattern within that market that people are missing for that product or service offering, and then that'll be your differentiator, right? So that's a great way to put it. And yes, we can share the recording of the Zoom session. Um, so any other good questions? These are great. Keep it coming, guys. Um, because yeah, this is and the other piece of it too, right, is the sweet spot. Anytime you're going to deploy in a new country, just take a look at this sweet spot, uh, you know, and understand, is this going to make sense? Because some countries you try to deploy to, it doesn't make sense. So let's see where else we got. Yeah, we can also send out PowerPoint presentation. So in the follow-up email, actually, we'll send a follow-up PowerPoint with the PDF, right, of everything that you see here. And then we'll also send the video as well. So, both's got hidden gems if you want to follow back along again. But yeah, any other good questions that I can help answer? Let me go back to Q&A just in case you can't hear me all the way. We're at questions. Um, Says Jason says, how can you assist our company? Why don't you shoot me an email? And let's get in touch. I think I shot it out to everyone. And I'll be able to more specifically look at your problem more in depth. So, uh, but if you have another specific question, let me know. Ranu says, being an introvert, how and where should one start in a foreign country who has no contact? That's a great question. Yeah, definitely start with one relationship, somebody like a friend or a colleague in that country, right? Um, I would say if you haven't been to that country yet, definitely just try visiting it. Uh, get an idea for its culture and that. If you're not social, I don't know if you travel alone or travel with friends or family and that, but that would be a good way to start. And then you can meet people there while you're in that country, and then maybe they could be future contacts for you. And then, I would say go to different community events within those countries, network events, you name it, right? Yeah, you're gonna have to, an introvert. I'm an introvert too. But here's the thing about introvertism. Uh, it's just the way you restore energy, right? Like I like talking with people, I love people, but when I'm ready to restore my energy, I want to be at home, be myself, do my own thing. So if you can just be able to just turn on a little bit of that extrovertism and talk and be social for just a little bit, and then just find those different pockets of uh, recharging, right? Because that's with an introvert. I think that's sort of the biggest thing is that social energy just drains you, right? It's a great question. At what time do we decide it's the right time to pull the product out when it's not working? When do we know there's persistence on when it would work? Well, I guess go back to your vision um, first. Okay, is this in line with the vision? Is it in line with the mission? And then, and third and last but not least, right? Is this actually working in terms of revenue? Right? Is this producing anything? I know it's kind of hard sometimes, especially for technical products, to always think, uh, initially revenue is going to always be there, but we'll more than likely you want to explore why those things are. And so what I do is detailed root cause analysis. Like if you've like let's say you deployed a product and just a bunch of bad stuff is going on. Try to retrace your steps to figure out, okay, where did things take that left turn? And then do like a post-mortem with your team or whoever you're working with. So they know, hey, this is how we're gonna moving forward. I don't want this to happen anymore. If everybody's morale is shot and you're constantly losing money and you're not seeing any results, then yeah, make that consideration. Maybe it's good to pull out. And don't forget there's the sunken cost fallacy. If something's not working out, you may think, oh man, well, I spent all such hard time on this. Um, you know, but it's like stop digging if you're already if you're already in the hole, stop digging. So just because you maybe feel the time or and money effort spend and it didn't work out, that's why I said earlier, fail and fail fast. Like, okay, it failed, get out of there. You know. Um, Thank you so much for the kind words. I didn't see your name. I'm glad you liked the appreciate presentation. Um, let's see. Any other questions? For yes, folks. Okay, I see big opportunity in P2P everything rental in the United States. How do I start from India? Peer-to-peer everything rental in the United States. How do I start from India? Um, well, I guess you could start. I mean, you don't need to be in the US to actually do some marketing in the US, contrary to what you might believe. What if you did an initial, like I said, an awareness campaign? to actually see if peer-to-peer everything rental makes sense, right? Because I mean, there are some rental platforms, like we've got car rentals, we've got maybe like office rentals now. But peer-to-peer everything you might have to tone it down to maybe a particular niche of rentals that maybe the US hasn't seen. Or you could try spinning it up in your current country. I don't know what it takes to run that up, but you're certainly more than welcome to join. So, uh, again, everyone, I will be sending the PowerPoint presentation as well as the video once we're gonna splice it up and, edit it, make sure it looks good and everything. And then we'll send it out to everyone in an email blast. And yeah, uh, hopefully you got my email in the chat. Uh, Reach out if you want to kind of learn more. Hey, I'm just happy to give free guidance for folks. If you have a particular problem or pain point, come talk to us. So we want to hear from you. So again, this presentation was brought to you today by Idea to IPO. Our event host, Rob Lau. He is the one who helps organize these events. And so we want to thank him for putting this together and getting us connected. So thank you everyone for coming to question.